You're listening to the Classic Gamers Guild podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the Classic Gamers Guild podcast. This week we're at full force again as I'm joined with Anna and Paul. How are you guys doing this week?
Lovely, mate.
I'm doing really well today.
Good, good. What's new with you guys?
Well,
Just kidding, I don't care. So today we're joined... Sorry, you're just too late. I'm not going to wait for you guys. Because today we're joined by Mark Fillon of General Interactive, developer of Terroir and the upcoming Chinatown Detective Agency, which has just been fully funded on Kickstarter along with most of its stretch goals. Mark, welcome to the show and thanks for joining us.
Rick, Anna, Paul, thank you so much for having me. I was looking forward to this for a while now, so it's great to be here.
It's great to have you on, finally. I played your demo for Chinatown Detective Agency a little while back, and I was immediately hooked by it, so it was, I'm really anxiously waiting for it to be done.
Yes, I also played the demo. I just got through it actually today. I wanted it to be quite fresh in my mind for speaking with you, so I put it off till the day of the interview, much like, how I was in high school with homework, but I'm enamored by it, mate. It's absolutely gorgeous. The art direction is gorgeous, and we'll get well into it. But I'll say I found it relaxing but engaging at the same time. Not like relaxing in a sleepy way. It was just put me in this like really nice kind of stoic mood, and I was really excited to kind of just get tucked into it and play it. So really well done, mate. I love it.
Wow, thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, beautiful colors. Absolutely, and reminiscent of a certain game I think many of us have played in the past, which I'm sure we'll also talk more about.
Awesome, wow. Thanks, guys.
It was a really good find, because I actually can't remember if I heard it first on Facebook or on Twitter, but it had all the ingredients to catch my attention, from a kind of a point-and-click adventure inspired by Carmen Sandiego, really cool pixel art, sci-fi, cyberpunkish art style, and just all of these things are just like this whole, man, that I can't possibly ignore this. So I looked into it. I saw you guys were starting up on Kickstarter, tried it, passed it on to all the admins over at the Classic Gamers Guild on Facebook. And everyone's pretty well hooked. So for several of us admins have backed your Kickstarter. Actually, tell us about the Kickstarter. How far did you get on the stretch goals? I know you got most of them.
Well, guys, firstly, thank you so much for the kind words. The team really appreciates that. For the Kickstarter campaign, I think we got pretty far. We got far enough that I was worried I may not have included enough stretch goals at one point. So let's start from the very basic stuff. We managed to cover all of localization, so it's going to be available to more people in more languages. But also two very cool things. We managed to get enough so that we could build the Hong Lim Mahjong Club. So it's this location in-game where you can gamble by playing Mahjong. The reason I put this in there is because some of the most memorable moments I've ever had playing video games are playing the mini games.
Yes.
Just a silly example. When I played Red Dead Redemption, playing cards at the saloon was one of my favorite moments of the entire rich world of the game. That tiny little thing was my favorite. So I thought we might, introduce this little thing, this little feature that could enrich the experience. And secondly, the Switch port. This one really was by popular demand. It was never in the plans. I never had any plans of making a Switch game, but because enough people kind of told us about it and suggested it, we said, you know what, if we make enough money for the cost of porting, let's do it. So and it was done. It was one of the more popular stretch goals. But also a third one, sorry, and I forgot to mention this. A third one, and this one was a surprise to me. We managed to hit a stretch goal for a free DLC called The Marigold Empire. And it's a really cool DLC because the Marigold Empire is the name of a cruise ship. So it's a standalone chapter in the game where you have to solve a mystery that takes place in a cruise cruise ship. That's all I'll reveal, but it's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I like the idea of a standalone, isolated case to cover. That's pretty cool. I was curious, I guess, before we get too far into the game that you're making now, I was curious as to your background or your roots with adventure games. What were some of the games that you grew up on? I believe, like me, from what I've seen, that you possibly kind of grew up with Macintosh computers, which is cool. But yeah, I was just wondering what games were you into growing up that may or may not have influenced Chinatown?
Well, the thing is, I got into gaming relatively late in my life, meaning I only really started playing games and like seriously, like really playing them to finish them when I was about 10 or something. You know, because I know some people will start much earlier. At around this time, I got to play a lot of, because I was a Super Nintendo kid, so I would play, Super Mario Land and all those games. But every time I got in front of the Mac, it would be adventure games. It would be point and clicks. It started out with Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, the original version, I believe, the 1986 release. Graphics were horrible because this was 1995, 1996, so it was already about a decade old. It didn't matter that the graphics were horrible. It was such an amazing mechanic. I think what I really liked about it, and this is something that maybe we can talk about later on, is just it was the first game that got me thinking about the game, even when I wasn't playing it, because I was thinking about all these exotic places and all these exotic cultures, even after I put the game down. So it was a very cool experience for me growing up. But aside from that, adventure games wise, I was more into the late 90s era. So that was Grim Fandango. Please correct me if I'm wrong, if that is the late 90s or early 2000s. But Grim Fandango, I forget which iteration of Monkey Island, but I'm pretty sure I played a couple of Monkey Island games. And even further on, later on in the early 2000s, I played a game called Siberia and Siberia 2.
That's right.
These were the adventure games that really, how do you say, influenced my thinking when it came to storytelling in video games. These were really the games that sort of influenced me.
That's really, those are great games to have an influence from. I think people, curious about Chinatown will be, almost have a sigh of relief knowing that kind of inspiration is going into the game that you're currently making. And I'll have to ask, because I bloody love the art direction in your game in Chinatown. I love, first of all, I'm a sucker for pixel art, but more specifically, I really enjoy the lighting that you've employed in this game. All of everything has a nice glow to it, quite literally. So that, of course, reminds me of probably my favorite film, and one of my favorite games is Blade Runner. So I was curious if that had any inspiration, towards the game.
I'm pretty sure it has on the artist responsible for the visuals in the game, Ricardo. And hopefully you guys maybe one day could have a sit down with Ricardo, because he's a very interesting person. He's the lead artist on the game, but he's also working on another game project, I believe. Also a point and click, also pixel art. I believe it's called Future Flashback. Very cool game to check out. He is he's more of an old school gamer than I am, simply because of the age difference. So he was more into the games of the late 80s and early 90s. He's much more knowledgeable about that, and a lot of his influences come from that era. You mentioned that you like the lighting, and I just wanted to say that that's Ricardo's specialty, because it's a 3-part process whenever we create these backgrounds. First, he sketches it out on a Sprite, I think. That's the name of the software that he uses to sketch it out in line art. And then he'll import it to Photoshop just to touch it up. And the final process is he puts these backgrounds into Unity, which is our game engine, and he actually uses a lot of these post-processing lighting effects. Meaning the lighting effects aren't done as part of the sketch. They're a layer on top of the pixel art. That's why they're so rich. So he uses a lot of 2D lighting effects, and that signature glow that you notice, which a lot of people have noted, is very distinct a very distinct feature of the game. That's probably one of the most time-consuming processes of the production of the art. So a lot of work and attention goes into it.
Yeah, it's completely worth it, and it's ridiculously notable. I absolutely love the glow. Is Ricardo's last name like Yukum or something like that?
Yes, that's right. It's Yukum. It took a while for me to learn. He's Brazilian, but I think lineage-wise, I believe his ancestors originated from Germany. I believe that's what he told me.
Sorry, as soon as you had said Ricardo, I was like, I bet you it's this gentleman, because I follow his art page on Facebook, and I've long admired his style. So it's kind of all comes full circle. It makes perfect sense that he's behind this game and why I'm so enamored by it.
And the art and graphics are just like phenomenal. Even if it does kind of go backwards a little bit towards like the pixel art, it's really beautiful pixel art. Like I played a little bit on a Twitch stream just to like show the demo to the free people who ever watch my Twitch stream, and I kind of demoed it a little bit before the stream just to like get a good screenshot to put as the background of while I was playing it. And seriously, like every single screen I came across, I had to stop doing screenshots because I was screenshotting like everything. Like there wasn't a bad shot, there wasn't a bad angle, there wasn't a bad like section of any area. It was just phenomenally well drawn, or however you want to, whatever the computer term of drawing is.
Yeah, definitely sets the tone for the game. Like, and I guess you have another member of the team as well. Is there the three of you, and then you have somebody, Jenny Hyde, working with you? And now, what does she do to turn ideas into games?
Well, I think the easiest way to summarize Jenny's role is she's the brains behind the whole operation. She's the lead programmer. She basically builds it. Whereas I do mostly game design, so I'll design the mechanics, and I'm also the writer, so I'll write the script. Jenny is more of the implementer. So she has a really interesting background, guys. Jenny has a PhD in theoretical physics, and she used to be a physicist.
Wow.
So she used to do proper research she used to be a character in Big Bang Theory, basically, is what I'm saying. She used to do research at universities in Japan and Italy. But she came back home to the UK and just thought up of a career change. And she got into software programming, and she used to do software programming for the National Health Service before she got into video games. So it's a very interesting but very unusual career path. She and I worked on Terroir, so she built Terroir. That was our first project together. I found her online. We met online. I think it was at some online board for game devs. So we were complete strangers. We have never met face to face, guys. And she's an absolute genius. She did Terroir by herself. It was a two-person effort, and now she's working on Chinatown. But she's got help this time around because we just expanded the team so that we've got another programmer, Lucas, who actually worked on another really cool pixel art game that just released, I think, 2 years ago called Not Tonight. So he's part of the team now. But Jenny is the lead programmer, so she basically lays out, the game's build herself. She builds a lot of the core mechanics and stuff like that. So in essence, she's one half of General Interactive. It's been me and her since the inception of the team.
Yeah, the game is great. It's really subtle as you're playing it. It kind of does a little bit of what Carmen Sandiego does. It gives you information about real places in a way that doesn't make you feel like it's giving you information about real places.
Absolutely. I think its similarities to Carmen Sandiego don't just stop there. There's also a lot of, so it's not just that it's based off of real information, real references to geography. But the most important similarity is that it asks the player to look for the answers to the game outside of the game. That that thing's always that mechanic has always blown my mind. But we've expanded on that because it's where Carmen Sandiego was mostly restricted to geography, a little bit of culture, a little bit of history. For Chinatown Detective Agency, we've expanded the scope of the information that you'll be learning about. It's art history. It's a little bit of science. It's mostly history and geography as well. But I don't know if you guys managed to play the very limited. One of the demos that we released is this limited time demo for the Ludo Narracon Festival on Steam, where you can play the second mission. Have you guys played the second mission?
No.
I have not played the second mission yet.
Oh, you guys will love the second mission.
Oh, that's great. I'm excited to hear it.
I'm sure I will.
The second mission, right, is really cool because, okay, so in summary, you're tasked with returning a bunch of very expensive stamps, like postage stamps, to their origin country. But these stamps are over 150 years old. They use the old names of the countries that they came from. Some of the stamps come from countries that no longer exist. So you actually got to research where these stamps came from. So this is this is a classic. How do you say? It's a classic throwback to Carmen Sandiego, where you had to figure out, the correct city or the correct country to move the mission forward. So yeah, definitely a massive Carmen Sandiego influence, probably the foundational influence of the game.
I love that.
That's actually kind of something which I really like about the demo that I played. I'm really happy that it's bringing back something that's missing from a lot of adventure games I play these days, in which it's the lack of hand holding the player to take them through the story. So there's like you said, there's a lot of independent research you have to do in order to solve these puzzles. There's information which I don't think there's like a whole lot of instances of this in the demo that I played, but I'm really hoping that it'll give us like information that we have to write down manually into a notepad. It won't just like remember for us kind of thing. But I just think it's really cool to be able to like put a lot of that control of like the actual brain work back into the actual player.
Totally. I think it was a leap of faith, right? Because asking a player to actually do research while playing a game, to some people that might sound like a turnoff, but it was a risk we were willing to take because we knew that a lot of adventure gamers, people who appreciate these kinds of games, are very smart people, right? They enjoy a challenge. They like puzzles. They like to use their, they like to be challenged when they're playing a game. So we knew that there would be at least a share of that audience, of the adventure game, point and click adventure game audience, who would not only mind this, they might actually love it, because even though a lot of the puzzles, a lot of the clues that you're going to be cracking in Chinatown Detective Agency do require outside research, they won't prevent you from finishing the game because of the difficulty. Right. We're not going to put in any puzzles or hints or clues that are absolutely ridiculously difficult. At least not for the main mission. There will be side missions that are not crucial to the completion of the game that will be much, much more difficult. And this is just for those who really want an extra challenge, So there might be one or two missions that I put in there that you will probably need about a week to crack. And that week might involve, proper research. You might need to actually download a high resolution image of a Renaissance painting to look for clues within the painting, stuff like that. Cool. But
that is awesome.
But the main quest line, don't worry about at least for the for the average casual gamer, they need not worry too much about doing too much in-depth research in the main quest line. They can probably still finish the game.
Yeah, that's very intriguing. I really like the idea of having to really sleuth around. And it reminds me actually of Carmen Sandiego, where I believe the first release or so came with an entire almanac, a thick 1,000-page size almanac, granted before Google and everything like that. So but I didn't look at that as a deterrence. I really enjoyed that aspect. It really helped me get, tucked into that game where it's like, oh God, here comes the whole almanac. I'm going to have to really do some homework. And just reminds me of what you said about about stamps with countries that no longer exist. There's something intriguing and exotic about that, knowing it's like, I know of like Persia and like Constantinople, the latter because of that song, where it's not Istanbul no more. But I'm excited to have to figure out and learn more, countries that change their name or don't exist. I'm very glad you took that direction.
Yeah. I think it just builds a richer experience overall whenever. Yeah. Because you get a nice dopamine kick whenever you solve something. You know what I mean?
Right. Absolutely.
It's such a rewarding thing when when you figure something out. So I feel like when you play Chinatown, there's going to be a lot of those moments.
And while you're doing it, the music in the background is just absolutely gorgeous. You have an ensemble. Who do you have doing the music for your game?
Oh, glad you mentioned it, Anna, because I know earlier on we were talking about how you're based out of Vancouver Island. One of the composers is actually also based in BC, but on the mainland, I think. His name is Sean Colton. I believe he's done a lot of soundtracks for games and film. He does a lot of the contemplative tracks. So when you play the game and you have those Twin Peaks sounding songs that are really slow and mellow, that's Sean. When you hear the more techno, energetic songs in the trailer, for example, that's Dmitry Muchkin, who's based out of Moscow, if I'm not mistaken. So the reason we decided to go with two composers was because if we stuck with one composer who specialized in creating mellow tracks, we wouldn't have any tracks that could, that we could use to promote the game. Something a bit more exciting, a bit more cyberpunk. Vice versa, if we went with Dmitry purely, the game would sound like it's in a constant rave mood. You know what I mean? You needed tracks to kind of allow you to think, but also tracks that would basically be conducive, to thinking and research and contemplation.
It really feels like it's taking you on the adventure. I mean, you get lost in the game, you're doing a puzzle and then you're moving on. I mean, the music really affects the whole environment.
Right, yeah.
It just suits it so well.
For sure. One of the cities that we wanted to include in the game was actually Vancouver, simply because every time, the limited time that I spent there, I was enamored. I thought it was such a cool city. But the thing is, there's already a game coming out that's based entirely in Vancouver. And I'm pretty sure you guys have heard of it. It's Backbone. It's coming out in the next few months, I think. And that game is based purely in Vancouver. And I think the guys are doing such a wonderful job on that. So
I actually didn't know about that.
Oh, you will love it. You guys will love it. Backbone is also a pixel art detective game, but instead of humans, you have anthropomorphic animals. So the main character is this the main character is this raccoon detective, and the whole game takes place in Vancouver. It's really a lovely setup and a lovely premise.
Oh, that is so suitable with the raccoon detective.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I'd never seen a raccoon before visiting Canada, and those guys are huge. I didn't know raccoons were that big.
Yeah, our local trash pandas.
Trash pandas, that's right.
What's really scary is if you ever... I haven't seen one in real life, so I never really realized this, but I think I went to a museum and actually saw how big beavers get. I was not expecting that.
Oh, really? So see, for example, beavers, right? In my mind, because I've never seen one in real life, in my mind, they're about the size of a cat. They're not, right? They're probably bigger.
No, they're quite a bit bigger.
No, they're huge.
They're big.
Oh, wow.
I think everything in Canada is a lot bigger than you're imagining it. Because even a moose, if you look at a moose, like you think a moose is big until you see how big a moose really is.
Jeez. I've not seen a moose in person either.
Yeah, majestic and intimidating.
Yes. From what I gather, there really is quite a large and vibrant Asian community in Canada. And one of the overarching themes of the game is it's the year 2031. And in my imagining of this future, China being the industrial mega powerhouse that it is, has basically taken over a lot of businesses and a lot of the industries of the world. There is that even right now in the real world, even today, there's a lot of paranoia around that, right? There's this sense, there's this feeling that they're taking over too much, which is a really interesting theme to explore in the game because in the year 2031, it's a real possibility. It's a real possibility that they'll dominate a lot of countries' industries. It's a paranoia that's quite apparent even here in Southeast Asia because they have such a large influence over the region, and that leads to a lot of really interesting avenues to explore for us, mainly around Chinese history, mythology, culture. So I didn't mention this at the start, but there are three in the game, Chinatown Detective Agency. You've got three paths to finish the game. There are three clients, and depending on which client you decide to help, the ending will change. One of the clients is investigating corruption in the government, and it's tied into this large Chinese mega corporation. And a lot of the clues and a lot of the cases are based on you'll need to do a lot of research into Chinese history and mythology, and it's a very cool way to learn about that whilst giving it this neo-noir spin, this neo-noir feel. So I just wanted to mention that because the game touches on a lot of the world's insecurities. It doesn't really get political. I don't want to say it gets political, but it really does make you feel like a lot of the things in the world of 2031 aren't so far-fetched, and it feels like it's very familiar in the world of 2020.
Well, that always makes things a little bit scarier when it's close to home. We're almost there, but not quite. You can really picture it being a real situation.
That's right.
Yeah, I think it's possible to be observational without, being political, without taking a stance, rather just observing, the feelings of people around. And like you said, Anna, that definitely adds just an eeriness to it that I certainly
totally
appreciate. So, but I was wondering, to take kind of let's say a prequel, a step back before this game came into being, what was the process for you as a writer to not only come up with this idea, but, I guess what I'm trying to say is, did you have several different ideas and you had to choose which one you wanted to run with? Or did you know right away you wanted to do, a detective style game set in this future, things like that? If you wouldn't mind kind of walk us through what it's like to go from ideas on paper to an actual fleshed out demo.
Sure. It always, at least for me, if you ask any other game dev, I'm pretty sure they have different answers, but at least for me, and maybe some game devs will agree, it always starts with a mechanic, right? It always starts with an interesting mechanic. And I knew from the very beginning, I wanted to create a game that was an homage to Carmen Sandiego. I knew that right away. I wanted to create a game where you traveled the world, had to do research to figure out where you had to go to next. So right off the bat, you've already got the foundational mechanic. And the setting, the backstory, was pure. It was purely circumstantial. I had moved to Singapore in 2015, and I was already working on Chinatown late 2017. And I was thinking to myself, okay, you want to do a Carmen Sandiego style game, but where is it set? Is it set in one particular location? And the one thing you'll notice if you've ever been to Singapore is that it's a really, really underrated city when it comes to storytelling potential. Whenever you think about cyberpunk Asia, you think Tokyo, right? You think Osaka, you think Hong Kong,
Right.
maybe even Shanghai.
Right.
Nobody thinks about Singapore, which is funny because Singapore has got to be one of the most Westworld places I've ever been to. Oh, funnily enough, the third season of Westworld was filmed in Singapore.
Oh.
So it's very futuristic. We have robots patrolling our parks, enforcing social distancing.
Oh, that's right.
There is a huge government push to make taxi services autonomous, meaning autonomous vehicles. It's a very Black Mirror-ish city, but not dark, not in a depressing, dark way. So I thought, this is the perfect setting for a cyberpunk, story. The thing is, I never thought I would make a cyberpunk game. I didn't like the term cyberpunk. I thought it was thrown around too often, and I felt I didn't want to associate with that. But because of the themes that we were covering, the future, the automated future, AI, and the human anxieties that revolve around AI and technology, it was just it just so happened to be cyberpunk in theme. But that was never the objective. I didn't want to make a cyberpunk game. It just naturally fit. So that was the process. It started out with a mechanic, and I drew inspiration from my surroundings, from the city, and the writing is still ongoing. Actually, I've set aside 2 weeks, and this is the first week to finish writing the game, and it's a lot of reading. It's a lot of watching movies to look for ideas. I'm heavily inspired right now by the Da Vinci Code because I'm getting a lot of inspiration for puzzles and cases and clues from that book. So yeah, that's sort of the process from a macro view.
Right. No, that's lovely. That really helps put me. I could never imagine taking on such a creative endeavor as you have. So I think that's as close as I'll ever get is listening to you poetically describe it. And I think it just sounds lovely to be influenced by something that inspired you as a child, and then to also take influence from your very surroundings sounds extremely organic. And I like that you said that it wasn't necessarily supposed to be cyberpunk, because as you said, there's a bit of that going around. But I think that it happened naturally and organically is quite lovely.
Yeah, I like the combination. Thinking of Blade Runner and the Da Vinci Code, you've got Black Mirror, you've got Carmen Sandiego. I mean, that is really an intriguing combination.
For sure. I mean, these are the movies and the TV series that really pushed it. That really pushed the again, that cyberpunk, but also techno future genre of storytelling, and those are really the gold standards that we kind of aim for. So definitely huge influences from those.
Yeah, and what's also really nice is something I feel is also a bit lost in not lost, but I don't see enough of in modern adventure games is globetrotting. Nothing can make me feel more adventurous than traveling the globe. And I'll even be as bold as to exclude space from that, as much as I love Space Quest and things like this. But there's very few games, the Indiana Jones games come to mind, like Fate of Atlantis, etc., when it comes to this. But I struggle to really think of a lot of games that made me feel like I was on this grand adventure. And when I do feel like that, it's usually because they have me hopping on planes and, charting a plane and going to different exotic or not locations. So I love that there was already a glimpse of that in your game. I think that was just a really great route to go, because it just adds such a sense of adventure and limitlessness.
I think, Paul, I think you hit the nail on the head with one very important point. When you think of those really cool adventure movies or stories, it always involves travel, right? So Indiana Jones, even the Da Vinci Code, even Uncharted, the Uncharted series, travel is always involved because, the most interesting stories happen in exotic, interesting locations. And even though you could probably create an interesting point-and-click adventure based in Singapore only in the year 2031, you really ramp up the storytelling when you take when you take the game to different parts of the world, especially when you think about what those places will be like in the year 2031. There's an inside joke going around. So, going around in the team and in our Discord, you'll notice one of the locations in the game is London, and
Yes.
the idea was to portray London in a sort of in an economically depressed, economically stagnant mood, because in the year 2031, that's sort of the future we're portraying. And so the Big Ben is under construction. There's not a lot of lights. There's a lot of people just hanging about by the riverbank, drinking, a lot of this stuff. And one of our Discord members was like, the Big Ben is still under renovation, isn't it? Hasn't it been under renovation since last year? And it's the year 2031, and it's still under renovation. So, I think you're right. I think travel really enhances that feeling of epicness that you're going on this grand voyage.
Well, your game does it so well with the subway system. I mean, for one, it's beautiful ride, and with the slightly ominous signs up and graffiti and things, and then the doors open and you'll arrive at an absolutely gorgeous location, but you've been somewhere. Is it kind of based on the real subway system in Singapore?
Yes, Anna. So thank you so much for pointing that out. I know it's so trivial and it's such a small piece of the game, but that's actually my favorite piece of the game. It's so cool, right? Whenever you have to ride the train, doors shut, and you see the underground lights, and you arrive at your location, the doors open, you see the stickers, the vandalism. I know it's such a tiny, and you'll probably get sick of it after like 2 hours, but I really love that part of the game because it feels real. Singapore has a really efficient subway system because driving a car is extremely expensive because it's such a small place. So they pile taxes on private transportation, like driving your own car. So to compensate for that, they built this really efficient public transportation system. And no matter what your walk of life, you could be a multimillionaire or you could be a minimum wage earner, you will ride the subway. So it's a really I think it's a really fundamental part of life in Singapore. But I loved playing with that experience. I loved the whole, cracking the glass, having like stains on the door. So the stickers are ripped off. There's even like graffiti that says, the state has failed. That was fun because this is something I see every day. I ride the train every day. And to think that maybe 10 years from now, 11 years from now, when the government is out of money, like this experience, this riding the train might not be the same, and it might be much more depressing and dark. It was a really fun, creative exercise.
Yeah, I particularly noticed how the subway door closes over the map. Like once you choose where you're going, just out of nowhere, the subway door swipes over the map and you're off and on your way. I thought that was really cool. I liked that.
Yes, that was really cool. It was actually a bit of a debate at the beginning because some people I showed it to thought it was awkward. They're like, why? It's weird that you're riding a train but you can see the map outside the glass. But as I started showing it to more people, and actually I started showing it to actual gamers, they liked the surprise, especially when it's the first time you do it. It's quite it's quite an interesting feature. So yeah, definitely.
So you mentioned the process of how you came to decide upon making Chinatown Detective Agency, but if we could rewind a little bit, so tell us about your first game and how you came about making that one, because that's like a winemaking sim.
Yes, that's correct. The name of the game is Terroir. So the word terroir refers to the distinct effect that a place or a location imparts on the wine. So A wine made in Bordeaux will taste completely different from a wine made in Italy, simply because of the soil, the climate, blah blah blah. This was a game that we wanted to make. Me and Jenny wanted to make to prove we could make a game. It was meant to be, it was meant to be an exercise in can we really do this? Can we be a dev team? Can we make a game? So the plan was always make Terroir, then make the next game. And Chinatown was basically the game we wanted to make originally, and Terroir was to show that we could do it. But it grew bigger than that. What I really like above all things when it comes to video games, and if you ever read my comments on the Facebook group, you'll see that that's the case. My favorite genre of video games is management, tycoon, city building kind of games.
Right.
More than point and click games, the games that really made me as a video game creative person are games like Caesar 3, Civilization. These are the games that I would say, I'm a massive Sid Meier fanboy. So for the first game, we thought, let's make a tycoon game. It's conceptually a tycoon game is very easily structured. It's very easy to plan. It's very easy to come up with the mechanics, as opposed to, like, say, a point-and-click adventure with a sprawling story. I was always, I had always wanted to make a game that was very niche in its scope, very niche in the subject matter. I know that there's a winemaking game that was made sometime in the mid-2000s. I forget the name, but I did my research and I found it on eBay. I found it on Amazon, I think. But it's very obscure because a lot of the tycoon games or city building games that are out there will cover more mainstream subjects, I guess. Like agriculture, or I know that there's a tycoon game about making cars. There's even a pharmaceutics tycoon game. So I thought, why not create a game about wine? Because I'm a bit of a wine geek. And I thought that's something that I know a little bit about already. And I completely underestimated the work involved because I had to actually, one of the things that I had to do was I had to look at the historical records of weather in Bordeaux all the way to like the 60s and the 50s.
Oh my God.
To come up with a probability model for the weather, because the weather is based on probability. So, X% chance it's going to rain, X% chance that it's going to be sunny. All of that is based off of historical data from the records that I found online in France. So that's completely underestimated this, but it makes the game richer. A lot of people are so the game is very polarizing. There's one group of people that really does not like Terroir because it's so random. And then there's another group of people on the exact opposite side who defend the game and say, yeah, but that's the weather. Like, the weather is unpredictable. Yeah. This unpredictability is something that farmers have to contend with when they grow, their grapes. I get it though. I get the frustration of one group, and I get the thinking behind the other. But that's the weather,
So is that part of the chance and circumstance system you have for the game? You have chance, a random event, and then you've got circumstance, which is a mission.
Yes, that's right. So this is a complete, let's be honest, it's a complete ripoff of Monopoly, where you have the community chest and you have chance. But the thing is, the reason why it's there is because without it, the game would be pretty linear, right? You just grow your grapes, you sell your wine. The beautiful thing about a mechanic like chance and circumstance, or chance and community chess and Monopoly, is it spices things up. It throws obstacles, unexpected obstacles into the game that, if you take seriously, could reward you. And if you just fool around with it, it might end up becoming it might end up penalizing you. So it kind of adds variety to the game, especially once you've mastered the game. Chance and circumstance is meant to be enjoyed best once you've mastered the core mechanics of the game, because it really adds another depth of challenge to it.
I like the idea that you can complete the playthrough the game in a certain amount of years, but that players can continue going afterwards and just not worry about contributing to their final score.
Yes, right. So, there's my Sid Meier fanboy side showing itself. We understood that even after once you've gone past that certain amount of time where you're being scored, you've grown an attachment to your chateau. You've grown an attachment to your creation, and you might want to keep playing it. So I think that was quite an important feature.
I did actually play it very briefly once you told me about it. So I, tracked it down on Steam, bought a copy, and played it for a little bit. And one thing that I really learned from that game is to not quit my day job. Because I suck at making wine. That's very well established.
Well, to be honest, I made the game, and there are still some games where I go bankrupt after 10 years, because it's a game. It's a game where you really can't, where you can't remove your hands from the wheel. You've got to be paying attention to every little detail. If you let 1 or 2 years go by just willy-nilly, right, like playing it loose, it can really come back to bite you, especially in the early parts.
So what are some of your plans from here, like moving forward with the project? Like, where are you right now, and what are your next few steps?
Well, the most important next milestone is coming towards the end of September, where we're releasing a free prologue of Chinatown Detective Agency. So it's a completely free first chapter of the game, where players can play the first 3 missions, 1 mission from each of the main clients, the main quest clients. And it's coming out sometime in late September, and I think it's a big enough game. I don't want to call it a demo, because it's much larger than a demo, because it's definitely longer than an hour. So it'll give you a big enough picture, a clear enough picture of what to expect in the full game. It's also definitely a challenging prologue towards the end, because the last mission will be a little bit more difficult than the first 2. And some people might enjoy it, especially the adventure gamers in your audience. So please stay tuned for that prologue that's coming out in late September.
It's exciting.
Yeah,
it's awesome. I will say I'm already really stoked to hear about the second demo that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Oh, definitely. So we're also taking part in Steam in the Steam Festival Summer Edition, which is on June 9. So the 9th of June next month. We will make that second demo available then. So if you'd like to play the second mission, please do try that out.
All right, so that looks like we're just coming up to the end of this interview, but if you would like, Mark, then now would be a good time if you would like to give any shout-outs or any plugs for yourself and your project and how people can follow you or keep up to date on what's going on.
Sure thing. Well, our main channel has always been on Twitter, so we're at GenIntCo, which is the first syllables of General Interactive Co. GenIntco. But also we're on Steam. So if you look for Chinatown Detective Agency on Steam, you'll find our page and all the links to our other channels, including Facebook, the website. So, and if you would be so kind, if you find the game interesting, please do give us a wish list on Steam. And yeah, that's how how they can follow us.
Thank you very much for taking the time to be with us today to answer our questions and to let us know about this project, which we are all very excited about. It was a great pleasure to have you on.
Thank you so much, Rick and Anna and Paul. It was a real pleasure speaking with you guys. I really feel like this has been one of the more engaging interviews I've had in recent memory, simply because I feel like we share the same interests when it comes to video games. So thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, it's our pleasure. In fact, we should have you back to talk about Carmen Sandiego one of these days.
Oh, that'd be amazing. Thank you for the invite.
Great idea, Rick.
All right. Until then, any last words, Paul and Anna? Too late. Okay, I'll give it without you. But now it's your turn, dear listeners. If you would like to join in on the conversation, please hit us up. We are on Facebook. We have a group and we have a page, the Classic Gamers Guild. We are also on Twitter at the CG Guild. For those of you who still email, we can be contacted at mail@classicgamersguild.com. We may or may not make an appearance on Instagram at CGG Podcast. And if you would like to support the show, you can find us on Patreon, Classic Gamers Guild. Throw us $1, throw us 10, maybe more. There's no limit. You can give us as much as you like. We're totally cool with that. And speaking of Patreon, thank you all very much to our Patreon supporters, and especially to those in our extra special thanks tier, namely Jay Holmes and Jeffrey Couch. Thank you all for joining us.
Yeah, buddy, I'm panicking. Go on Steam and like this wonderful man's game. Follow it and put it on your bloody wish list, because I think that helps. And even if it doesn't help, what's it bother you? It's just a bloody click. Do the click. And thanks for listening, and we love you. And don't do murder ever.